Hello friends and welcome. Today we are doing a deep dive info dump on the difference between position 4 soft support and position 5 hard support. This is a question that has been coming up a lot lately. I made a video a couple years ago. It's more of a beginner's guide. If you're new to the game, I would maybe start there, but warning, that video is kind of cringe because I made it years ago. This time, this is much more advanced. We are going into the nitty-gritty map differences, why camps in a certain way allow you to do things as a soft support but not a hard support, why the different power spike, like farm priority, what does that actually mean? The difference between 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 15 minutes, all that stuff. We're gonna go into that here. I'll start by saying that many of you can ignore everything we're about to say in this video because this is high level meta. When everyone's playing optimal, this is how you make the most of a position 4 hero versus a position 5 hero. But that doesn't really happen in a lot of pub games. And that's why you'll see many supports played in both 4 and 5. And you're like, well, I win a lot with this, even though Zach says it's not really a position 4 hero. Because what makes it a position 4 hero only matters if everyone else is doing what is good in Dota. So for a lot of ranks, this isn't all that important. But if you are approaching a higher MMR or maybe trying to play in a team environment, this stuff is good to know, and it's also just interesting. So here we go, let's get into it. By nature of being a support, we have to first consider who is going to be in the lane with us, the carry or the offlaner. The carry is a huge baby. They're gonna whine and cry all the time for attention. Their actual roles in the game, we're gonna generalize here because there's all sorts of carry supports cores, every variation. Generalizing, carries are weak at the start of the game because they are going to scale exponentially and be very strong later on in the game. So their heroes start off quite weak. The items they buy also tend to be quite weak. So they might buy some consumables, couple small items to get through the lane, but they want to go for a farming item usually, and farming items are not the strongest lane presence items. Things like Battle Fury, Maelstrom, Radiance. You have to save a lot of money to get to those items. Even when you finish those items, they don't necessarily make you strong in the lane. They help you farm creeps that are not very powerful. They give you more AoE damage or attack speed or movement speed or whatever. Those are not great at dealing with enemy heroes. So whoever is helping them, the hard support, you often need to buy more consumables to pass to them so that the carry can save up the money for the farming items they want to buy as quickly as possible. You need to be strong in the lane because the carry is weak and a baby, and you got to take care of him. You got to help him get the last hits he needs until he is strong enough to be on his own. Offlaners are stronger at the start of the game because they're more focused about the early to mid game portions. They're going to buy things like auras and initiations to get things done for their team. This means they're perfectly happy buying more regen at the start of the game, buy those small items to be strong, and then when they go for their bigger item purchases, like let's say 1,000 gold, people have bought their boots, wraith bands, an offlaner might be buying something like a Helm of the Iron Will, armor and HP regen, which is stronger in the early game than damage, which takes more time to ramp up, Ring of Health, auras, chainmail plus headdress to work on a mech. Like whatever the item of choice is, the first 1,000 gold makes them stronger in the lane, harder to deal with, more survivable to be left alone. The carry maybe hasn't even spent that 1,000 gold because they're saving up for a Claymore, a Mithril Hammer, Javelin. Okay, they could have bought the Javelin, whatever. You know, those type of items which give them damage, but doesn't strictly make them stronger to survive. Now, if they're free to do damage, perhaps because they have a strong hard support, being that front line, starting things for them, they can then just attack freely, make use of the damage, but on the build up to the damage, they are weak, and then even with that damage item, they might still be killed pretty quickly by a strong offlane support combo. Tying this back into supports, whoever is playing hard support, helping out the carry through their weak portion, you often need to be a strong laner, and you need to be staying in the lane a little bit more. Not that you can't ever leave, but if you leave, you were supposed to be the babysitter, now the baby's on their own, that's bad. You're supposed to take care of the baby. So you have to be with them until they're a little older, until they're stronger, and they can be left alone. So you want to be very useful in the lane for the first 5 to 10 minutes. This is where it varies based on MMR, but I would say especially the first 5 to 6 minutes, hard supports want to be quite useful in the laning stage in the current meta. Soft supports have more options because offlaners are stronger. So instead of like leaving a baby alone, you're leaving a teenager alone, which shouldn't do too much probably, but you know, they're more okay than the baby. So the 4 support could also be a strong babysitting support, just be really good in the lane together, get kills, or they might go roam, might go do other things that we're going to talk about in a moment. And that's not so bad. It's not like you're losing a lane right away because the off laner is strong. If you leave a weak carry alone, they're probably just going to lose that lane. The game starts, you want to rush out to the lanes because this is where the map differences start coming into play. So the safe lane, the equilibrium meets right here. We call it the safe lane because you will often be under your own tower where you'll get bonus armor and regen, and if the enemy tries to kill you under the tower is going to hit them, and in the early game, that's pretty strong. Same thing over here, although the creeps meet a little further out. Just one of those intricate differences between Radiant and Dire. Now, the safe lane support is more likely to be concerned with blocking camps because it's very important to keep equilibrium here. As the safe lane, we start with good equilibrium, and it can only get worse from there. So if the lane pushes out, we care a lot about getting it back here. We like to block this camp because this is how the off lane disrupts the equilibrium by doing a pull, and the lane comes back here. If we can't do this, maybe we want to make sure we can do our own pull. We care more about this. The 4 support does still care about it, but from their perspective, they start in the worst equilibrium over here, and it can only get better. And there's a lot of different ways you can change that equilibrium, again, based on the map. So first of all, you will sometimes see people come between the towers at the very first wave and do things like block the first creep wave so that their creep wave goes under tower and the tower kills it, shoves out right away. You'll see things like sentries back here that distract the creeps long enough. You'll see people just kill them here. Primal Beast, Darkseer might just trample these creeps. Things like Earthshaker, Fissure Block to delay the creep so the equilibrium, instead of meeting here, meets all the way back here. You might do a pull. What if you push? If you push, it just resets here because you push your wave in, it dies to the tower and resets here. You can't get worse equilibrium than right in front of the tower. So the 4 support has a lot of options. The 5 support and the carry, you gotta keep it here as much as possible. There are times to push the lane, but it's a risk-reward thing. You're gonna get benefits for pushing, but you are walking into a more dangerous area because you're losing the safety of the tower. You're opening up more time for you to be run down and killed because the tower's all the way over here. It is just strictly scarier for the safe lane to do that. So because of that, safe laners are more likely to spend a little bit more money on sentries. We're talking 100 to 200 gold perhaps at the start of the game in sentries, where the soft support might just body block. They're free to do that because of more differences we'll get into in a second. But usually like movement speed, tankiness, things like that, the 5 support are going to be more scared to walk out here on their own because they got a weak carry. The 4 support probably can walk over here, do this, fight you, while their offlaner is strong, winning the lane while you're gone, but also maybe coming over and helping and getting you killed. So because you don't really want to walk out here, you got a sentry stuff. In terms of itemization, the hard support is more likely to buy things like extra sets of tangos, salves, mangoes, clarities, more sentries like we just talked about, because we need it for ourselves, but also the carry. As we are taking on this onslaught of damage from a stronger offlane, we can't get so weak and die, or so weak we just sit back and lose the farm. No, we must be strong enough. Consumables are very valuable for their upfront value, but they are not as good in terms of long-term scaling because you literally eat the consumables. That's why we call them consumables. But you still got to do it. And that means your net worth doesn't really grow at the start all the time, but it is just necessary as the hard support. The soft support has a little bit more wiggle room. We mentioned the offlaners are buying their own regen, buying things like Helm of the Iron Will to reduce the need for regen, whereas the carries are building just straight damage sometimes. So 4 supports could just match the 5 supports, go for a lot of early regen, fight it out in the lane. They could go for something greedier like Orb of Venom, Blightstone, just early damage, early stats. Things that the 5 support maybe would also love to do, but has to first prioritize the very short term. We're talking 1 to 2 minutes to 5 minutes value. The 4 support can think, this Windlace, this Boots, I want to get it now, and it'll be valuable for the rest of the game, and I'll have it now. Or this Blightstone, I can still buy some regen and a Blightstone, and now all my right-click trades are going to be better than the hard supports. They get to go for these early advantages because of the difference in the sentries and consumables we were talking about. The first wave meets, and they don't aggro on anything else until they get right here. The second wave has different rules. This is where creep dragging comes into play. Actually, we can keep going until the creeps actually get here. So up to this point, you can't aggro creeps until they get to right behind the tier 1 tower. Actually, let's go ahead and move Jakiro over here. So I can demonstrate this. As the safe lane, you want to have a neutral to good matchup, ideally. That's not always going to happen. Sometimes you have bad matchups, you just got to get through it. But when it comes to the lane, we really need as many options as possible to keep it here. And our options are pretty much have good matchups, have the pull camps in a good spot. That's kind of it. Otherwise, get ready to jungle early. The 4 support and the off lane have way more options because of the difference in map. So look how much space there is between the tier 2 and the tier 1 tower of the safe lane. How open this area of the map is. There's no outpost over here. So the 4 support can do something called creep dragging. Offlaners can do it as well, where you meet the creep wave back here, you aggro them, and then you walk them around. Now, where exactly you go depends, but it's most common if you need to do this because you're in a bad matchup, you grab the second creep wave, drag it through this camp to body block it. Sometimes you block both camps, it depends. And then some people will bring it right here, some people will bring it all the way back here and deny it over here, and it's very hard to contest back here because of how congested this area is. Can the safe lane do the same thing? Oh, this matchup's really bad. Support, can you go creep drag for me, bring it back here? No, for multiple reasons. One, let's say I'm trying to do it. This is where I have to meet the creep wave, the earliest I could do it. Otherwise, I could meet it out here, which this is the lane. So if the off laner and the soft support see you trying to catch the creep wave here, they're just going to kill you. So you try to surprise them, you grab the creep wave here, and then where do you go? You try to go to this right side. They're going to TP here and cut you off. This is the only place out. Okay, that's not going to really work. Let's go this way. All right, so they could TP here, cut me off. This way, TP here, cut you off, if they're not just walking back to get you. Well, maybe I make it all the way over here before they do it. They're going to TP right here, cut you off. TP here, cut you off. There's so many ways to get killed as the hard support trying to creep drag. It's just not a viable option. The only time you ever really see it is when the hard support standing here, the 4 support creep drags here, so you catch the creep wave here, and then you meet in the jungle. You'll see this at the pro level, not really in your pubs all that often. That's the only creep dragging the 5 support, the safe lane, have available to them because of the map differences. It's just way too hard to do this. So the 4 support, if they pick a hero that is not strong in the lane but has more scaling potential, they're not auto griefed because they don't just lose the lane, lose the game, because you don't necessarily lose the lane. You can go for this type of creep dragging, catch them out here. It's so open, lots of safe time to get over here, and many escape paths, right? You try to TP here or here. Maybe you have an observer here earlier, so you see TPs coming in, you just go this way or this way. You see people coming in here, you just go this way, deeper into the map. Lose the creeps in a tree line somewhere on an uphill. There's many up and down areas to lose the creeps on high ground vision, and then they just walk back to lane, but you doubled up the wave, blah, blah, blah. So many options for the support, for support to go neutral in a bad matchup. So you have more options. Instead of being a strong laning support, you can be strong, like Alina, a Hoodwink support, or you can be very weak, like Nyx or Earthshaker, because you have this option. If you plan on creep dragging, you don't need to buy a bunch of regen because you're not really trading with enemy heroes. You can go things like Windlace and Boots early, better long-term value, skipping that poor short-term cost stuff like the consumables, as the position 4, just creep drag. This is another way that the 4 support ends up with a few hundred extra gold over the 5 in the early game. You bring it over here, well, Zach, what about the offlaners? And he being bullied, he now needs to buy more regen? To some degree, but once the creep drag works and it comes back here, the offlaner will stop really taking damage, or you will successfully get equilibrium back here, and now you've kind of swamped it. Sure, the offlaner's alone, but they're under their tower. The strong support 5 maybe wants to bully. You got a weak carry. Is the Medusa helping you dive this? Probably not really. So the offlaner will be okay here, and he can always depend on TPs to come in to help out. So the 4 support can move around, spend the money on the move speed, bring it over here. The offlaner, because they are strong, because they are buying early items, they are now okay here, which then frees up the 4 support again. Whereas the carry being left alone here is maybe okay depending on the matchups. Oftentimes the hard support still needs to be here to kind of bully the offlane. But once you get here and the offlane is alone, not as worried about the offlaner being bullied by the hard support and the weak carry. So the 4 support could just do things like maintain this equilibrium, make sure no pulls happen, keep these camps blocked. That's always an option. Or they could gank. We're going to cover that in a little bit. or they could come over here and stack. Now, actually, you could stack in multiple places. You could stack here, or you could stack here, but there's a lot of value that I'll break down for you in a moment. I forgot to mention this earlier, I'll edit it in somewhere, but any support who depends on creeps is usually a hard support because there's way more camps down here, and which creeps you can use depends on your levels, the current way it works, so you're more likely to have a smooth flow here from small camp to medium camp to hard camp, many access, many camps down here. You can try to do it as the 4 support. Maybe this one spawns something you can use. Maybe it's 2 acorn creeps and you can't use either of them. If you want to come over here, maybe you can do it. Maybe you want to come over here. It's getting risky. This is the enemy's half of the map at this point. So any of those creep heroes, almost always a hard support. So this is an ancient and a hard camp here. It's very forgiving to double stack this, and you can get a lot of double stacks here. You can get like 5+ camps before they really get difficult and they're not leaving the box in time. It's very close to the lane, so we get the equilibrium here, maybe it's back here, and then boom, we just pop over as the 4 support. We even have move speed. If we are a ranged hero, anyone with a decent range and decent move speed can do this double stack with just attacks. If you're a melee hero, you probably need to use a spell, but you could always just choose 1 stack, and a hard camp or an ancient stack is still very nice, still very valuable. From this double stack, you have a couple options. So you can double stack this way, maybe make your way to the runes, double stack this way, just come back to the lane. It's very quick and easy for the 4 support and very high value. The hard support. What are the same options for the hard support? Let's say the lane is balanced here. Well, the closest one is going to be over here. This is a medium and small camp stack. It's not nearly as valuable, and these boxes and these camps are actually very hard to stack. The timing is quite strict. It's easy to stack 1, but stacking both almost always requires a spell, because you need to have vision of both, you usually need to stand right here, and most people can't reach this. So you hit this first, you walk down, you've already missed the window. You got to hit both these at pretty much the same time, drag them this way. You'll still miss the stack a lot. These two are really annoying to stack, and even if you successfully double stack, you got some issues. First of all, medium and small camp, not that valuable. Second of all, okay, we come over and farm it. The offlaner or the 4 support could just be in this area. This is still quite close to the lane. If they suspect you're farming here, they could just stand somewhere here and absorb it. You might have some twin gate rotations come over, see you farming, they gank you, maybe they steal it from you. This is not bad to do for your carries, and it's better for certain ones like Lunas, Alchemists, Medusas, early flash farming heroes, but it's not always the best. On the other side, this is really hard to stack. The tree lines block your vision, unless you have a Quelling Blade, which does the carry have time to come over and cut it for you? Did you buy a Quelling Blade as a support? Probably not. It's very awkward to double stack this camp again. Same deal over here. 4 support, come over here, double stack, very easy, very forgiving, this way, wherever, very high value. Well, there's a bunch of other camps. But which ones do we want to try to double stack? It's pretty tough. You usually need a very long range spell. I'd say this is probably the easiest to double stack. Vision is blocked, so you're going to need to use mana to do it in most cases. Over here, sometimes you can double stack this one, but you're so far from the lane. And then where do you go from here? You can like slowly make your way to the rune. This one is gone. Whoever has done the stack here is already here at the rune spawn. If you're trying to double stack this, you'll always be a few seconds late. So you can't really go for the double stack. Here, kind of possible. Again, you see the tree line is blocking the vision, so it's not easy. And then the way the camp boxes are formed and the drag times, you can get decent sized stacks, but you need to be, again, like clean on the timing, which means you probably needed to use a spell to do so. Nerd math table. Maybe I'll make this look nice, maybe I won't, but here's the values of the camp. Whoever kills the stacked camp gets 85% of the original value, while whoever stacked it gets 30% of whatever the killer gets. Add it all up here, the double stacks. Let's compare the small and medium stack that the hard support can most viably do, and then the ancient and hard camp stack that the soft support can do. The rough values don't need to remember. The 4 support essentially gets twice the value that the hard support does if they both leave the lane and go do a double stack that is closest to them. That means the 4 support, it's way better to go and do that double stack. And there's a risk. There's a risk to doing the stacks because you leave the lane, the carry's alone, the offlaner could be alone. How's that going to go? The offlaner's probably better than the carry. So For the off lane, they have more reward and less risk to go do these double stacks. There's also a time commitment on stacking, how fast your movement speed is. Many hard supports tend to be slower. It takes them longer to move around the map compared to 4 supports who are often faster, and we mentioned are more likely to be able to buy things like boots or windlace early, which means it takes them less time to go do a more valuable stack. There's less risk inherently, but they'll also make it back, further reducing that risk. So 4 supports are more free to move around out of the lane. Maybe you don't want to stack, maybe you want to come for a gank. I'd say that around 4 minutes is very common. It'll still be daytime. 6 minutes, nighttime. For the power runes, also a very good time to come in. But what are you going to do once you're there? 5 supports, you're probably level 2 to 3 at this time. Let's say the 4-minute water rune. The mid is 4 to 5 potentially. Maybe not quite 5, like 3 to 4. At 6 minutes, you're getting closer to like 3 to 4 on the supports, 5 to 6 on the mids. It's scary to come in and fight the mids. And if you're a hard support, there are some strong hard supports. There's many who are squishy, but are good in the lane, someone like Crystal Maiden. But when you come fight a mid hero who has more gold and more levels than you, like that doesn't feel very good. So 5 supports who are squishy backliners who depend on the safety of the tower in good equilibrium, they don't really like coming for runes because they're probably just gonna get killed by the mid, or maybe it becomes a click war and then you gotta run, but you're a very slow hero, so then the dire mid just runs and kills you, and you got a long way to go to safety. Your mid maybe went top. Maybe they come in, and that's why 5s can still sometimes come in. Both of you work together, even though you're not the best. But if you are alone, and if you run into the 4 support on the way, and the 4 support is stronger than you, the 1v1 4 support probably just kills you. So 5s don't really like coming over here for runes. 4 supports are a little bit more likely to have stuns in their toolkit or something to help them secure the rune, or they go for the click trade and then they get away because they have a little bit more gold from earlier. They might be a little bit more survivable. They might have a little bit more move speed. So even though the mid won the click war and they run away, because you're just faster as the 4 support running away from like the radiant mid, you make your way into the high ground. This teleport right here, like how far do you want to chase me? My team could come in and get you killed. It's scary. 5 support, do you have any options? No, you gotta like go straight into the mid lane, and that can have its own issues. Now, maybe it's not about the runes, maybe it's about a kill. How likely are you to succeed on a gank? Many mids, daytime perfect, right? You'll see pretty far as just the hero. You might also have an observer down. You don't know exactly where it is a lot of the cases. How likely is a 5 ganking, so like the dire 5 coming in to gank the radiant mid from this way, or the safe lane radiant 5 ganking the dire mid coming in from this way? How likely is that to succeed? Well, it's not that easy for a slow 5 like Jakiro, Crystal Maiden, Ancient Apparition, Lich. They gotta get real close, and mid heroes often have boots at this point, if not some kind of gap closing ability already, depending on what level you're coming in at, and they walk away. It's not a high chance of success for many position 5s. But position 4s are more likely to succeed. They're faster with their earlier boots and windlace purchases, and in general, their stats, there's more fast position 4s than there are fast position 5s. So more likely to close the gap before the mid can notice it or get away. Even if they do see it, they just can't get away in time, especially because many position 4s have some way to deal with that, whereas position 5s may not, like Crystal Maiden. How is she going to reach a mid hero far away? Position 4s, Earth Spirit, roll in, Tusk, Snowball in, Fissure Block. I blanked a little, I had to go look at heroes. Bat Rider might knock you back with Flame Break. Bounty Hunter might walk in Invis. Those same heroes are also more likely to be able to do something sneaky. So like the Dire 4 comes over here and you don't see this area because it's in Fog of War, and they can just roll through the terrain and get you and stun you and trap you here and kill you. And it is more likely to succeed than a slow position 5 maybe has similar tools. Like sometimes you see Tusk 5. You're more likely to see Tusk ganks in that case. But a lot of position 5s don't have that tool. So let's connect all these dots to summarize the difference between position 4s and 5s in the laning stage. Position 5s are more likely to be stuck here because they gotta babysit the carry. And even though they might be able to go do some of these other options, they need to be very confident that their carry is going to be okay while left alone, and that is the weak carry, generally speaking. The offlaner is stronger giving the 4 support more options. First of all, that a lot of choices and ways to try to get the equilibrium to come back more than the hard support. Once the equilibrium is back, the offlaner is stronger, so the 4 support can choose to go do other things. They don't have to. They can continue to be in the lane, and slower position 4s, lane dominators, tend to do that. But faster position 4s and those that have ganking tools often come here to do a more valuable double stack, to go for the rune, to go for a gank. You can often line all of those up at once if you do the timing correctly. Stack this into the rune, get a good rune, gank. All of it lines up very nicely for a position 4, and it takes them less time because they're probably faster. So even if you play a hero who can do both roles, like Clockwork or Shadow Shaman, Grimstroke Ringmaster, whatever, you can have similar play styles, but will still need to adapt a little bit due to the differences in who you are laning with and the map layout. The early game is where there are the most differences between 4 and 5, but that accumulates into the 15-minute timing of how much impact a hero could have, because you are likely to have, not every game, but if someone is going to have a big influx of gold, it is more likely to be the 4 support, because when you are free to do these consistent double stacks and get a good chunk of gold that way, and then the ganks might go your way, and then at the high level of play, whoever roamed and did a lot of this, which is usually the 4 compared to the 5, but it could be the 5, but whoever roamed, which is usually the 4, is then given space back by the team. So the 4 gave a lot up of themselves. They're like level 4 at 10 minutes. But it made the mid very powerful. The ganks didn't get kills, but it burned a lot of mid resources. They had to go home a lot. The mid got a lot of runes, now has a bunch of stacks. The mid is very powerful, goes around and makes plays and doesn't, either the 4 support goes with him and they get kills and the 4 support catches up that way, or because the mid is moving around a lot, that support gets to sit here and farm up the creep waves to get the levels back, but also to very quickly build up a good chunk of gold. And that brings us to our next question. Let's say a 4 did it versus a 5 did it. How impactful is that influx of money and XP going to be? Take a hero like Crystal Maiden. What is the most impactful 2,000 gold item she could get? And probably a lot of good support items are coming to mind right now. Force Staff, Solar Crest, those are great. Those work by helping the teammates. It's not about the individual hero. Crystal Maiden's not like, oh, dodge that Crystal Maiden, she's got a Solar Crest, right? She makes the hero she is next to very strong if she had a large amount of money to suddenly make them stronger. But you take a hero like Earthshaker, level 4 Earthshaker, given a lot of time to farm, he finishes up that Blink Dagger, has Echo, has his passive maxed out, Fissure high levels. That's really scary. Blink Earthshaker 4 support could just win a team fight on his own. A Marcy who is left alone to farm up a BKB quickly is now suddenly solo killing cores. Have you ever seen an Oracle get a kill streak and you go, oh, avoid the Oracle over there. I just have no plays. Oracle is just saving so hard over there. I can't do it. Like, it doesn't matter. You can go kill that Oracle. Of course, Oracle is strong and can have a lot of impact, but the impact is still off of other heroes. That is a big difference between the 5s and the 4s. Even when the 5s get a lot of money, it's still rarely about them. It is about the teammates. The 4 supports, who are more likely to pick up gold and XP based on everything we talked about, and also now being given the space by their team, they are more likely to be very scary. Hoodwink, oh, she has a Gleipnir late game getting one shot by the ultimate. Muerta is now popping off, pew, 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 scaling everywhere. Like, that is the scary part of position 4. That scaling, high impact, individual, based on the hero play, not based on another hero's play. This is the role assistant from the Dota Plus, commonly played heroes in the Divine rank. You want to see Herald real quick, pause. But the Divine rank, pretty high up there. And even here, for example, AA, I'd say, is a hard support, not a 4 support. And yet, a lot of people play it here. And that is because for a lot of pubs, there is laning. It is not safe lane. It is not off lane. They're not playing the different maps and ideas and concepts. They are playing lane. And that is it. And that's why you typically see more position 5s being played as position 4s, because it doesn't matter if you're a roaming hero. If the team doesn't know how to do that, every time you step away from the lane, the offlaner dies. Oh, I'm Tusk 5, I'm supposed to move, the carry dies, right? You don't get to do that. So you enter this cycle where we all just play lanes in a lot of pubs until you reach Divine Plus. Again, I know this happens in earlier brackets, which is why I think it's still good to know this concept, but you will be able to get away with it a lot more playing someone like AA. He's a better 5 because he's very slow. He just wants to poke the enemy, get to level 6, and then contribute. Does not gank very well in the early game, needs the safety of the safe lane tower. Doesn't have that as an off lane for support if he gets punished properly. Many people won't do that. That's why you get away with it. Well, Zach, I want to be position 4 AA because Ice Vortex is a good farming tool, and I want to get an Aghanim's Moonshard, and I've scaled and carried a lot of games. I'm not saying you haven't, but I'm saying that's like 10,000 gold you need. That's far too long to take to scale up and become useful. Compare that to some actual position 4s in here. Bat Rider needs a blink. Very useful in the laning stage, good at roaming, multi-stack, multi-farming things, buys a blink, and can now threaten kills everywhere across the map. What 2,000 gold item gives that to Ancient Apparition? Nothing. Atos on Skywrath. He saves a bit of money on consumables, playing position 4. Early ganks work, long-range concussive shot and silence. Gets kills, gets an Atos ult. Everywhere across the map, almost every hero must be scared of being solo killed by Skywrath. That is a lot of impact entering the game early in the first 5 minutes, and then again in that 12 to 20-ish minute mark. Lots of impact. That is often what defines the position 4. Blink, Lion, Dagon, Nyx, Blink, Tusk. What is Undying's position 4 item that he can't just do as a position 5, and this guy can't roam, and he's slow, and he's not good at stacking? I'm not saying he can't win lanes as a position 4, especially when people only lane, but you're mid when he needs rotations, and the enemy 4 is playing Spirit Breaker, ganking in really early, and you're like, I don't do that here, I only lane. You are going to fall behind when people follow the meta. Some heroes that can do both might have different builds. For example, Marcy as a 5, you're more likely to see things like Solar Crest, or just the usual drums, Force Staff, things like that. Position 4 Marcy might be a little more likely to go BKB, Basher, things like that. Ogre is a very popular hero in pubs. People love to play him as a 4 support and a 5 support, but really he is a 5 support because what do? You are a very strong laner with Ignite. You bloodlust people. That's it. That's it. That's Ogre's life. You buy buff items. You buy a Solar Crest, eventually you get a Midas. Your ultra late scaling is good because he had the multicast, but there's about a 30-minute window between that he does not have a lot of impact compared to an actual true position 4. And I'm saying that like it's definitive. I know it's very vague in Dota depending on the game. I'm not saying position 4 Ogre can't work. I know it does. But if I was looking at the hero, I would tell you guys he's a much better position 5. And hopefully after watching this video, you start to understand that Dazzle can actually run people down as a position 5. There's space for it. He can just heal his team up. As a position 4, what is the pop-off scaling item? Well, Zach, there's Core Dazzle. Core Dazzle needs an Aghanim's and then a bunch of other farm and then another item and another. He needs a lot to be Core Dazzle. 5 Dazzle is not going to do that. 4 Dazzle, hoping to scale like a Core Dazzle, is also not going to really do that, especially when you can't run people down because they're right by their safe lane tower. So you hit them once and then that's it. That's why he's way better as a 5 than a 4. There's like degrees of how impactful farm is, and the more you play the game, the more you know heroes, the more you'll feel that. When you don't need a lot, you're a position 5. When there's like a pop-off window, that is more position 4. When it comes to farm priority, which is related to, but also slightly different from everything else we talked about. There we go. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it helpful. I will end here. Feel free to drop questions down below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Thank you. Bye.